during Operation Midway Blitz. 13 people have been arrested this week in Chicagoland.
The 8-year-old suffered injuries to his jaw and ribs in the attack.
And we're going to continue to get them the resources they need to get the bad guys off the streets, Jesse.
It began with a single frame of grainy security footage, something you'd scroll past without thinking twice. But inside that shaky clip was the spark of something much bigger. A woman fighting back. A shadow is dragging her toward a van. A struggle that became the first thread in a case that would expose a hidden network beneath everyday life.
The I-Team tonight following the arrest of a man the FBI says threatened to kill federal agents. Federal authorities say Michael Stover of Downers Grove made multiple posts online threatening to kill ICE agents and was already known to law enforcement for allegedly threatening public officials, also on social media earlier this year.
Detectives froze the frame. The image flickered as they zoomed in. One search led to a name, Vinwin. At first, it looked like another standard arrest, another face on a file, but the moment they cuffed him, everything shifted. Information poured in like floodwater, including names, addresses, and contacts that didn't belong together, yet somehow did. Each clue led to another, and suddenly, the pattern was impossible to ignore. It was a thread in something far darker, a hidden network quietly running through American neighborhoods. Federal agents soon realized that they weren't chasing petty criminals or border crossers. These were predators, men who had learned how to vanish in plain sight. Violent offenders with long records of child exploitation, aggravated assault, and armed burglary, living quietly among families who never thought to look twice. And that was the first red flag. They were already here, not hiding in deserts or ports, but inside the very places people called home, next to playgrounds, in apartment blocks, on quiet suburban streets. Vinwin's arrest didn't close a case, it opened floodgates. Within weeks, ICE analysts had mapped dozens of offenders tied to him, people who had slipped through local enforcement and found cover behind loopholes designed for protection. The discovery was chilling. They weren't just hiding, they were organized. Across several states, agents uncovered the same pattern, criminals using their legal status as a shield. Sanctuary policies had unintentionally built a wall that kept federal eyes out, and predators had learned exactly how to use it. They shared notes online, trading county lists and release schedules, marking which cities would look the other way and which neighborhoods were safest to vanish into after an arrest. It was like watching crime evolve in real time. While lawmakers debated compassion, predators were comparing blueprints. One ICE report summed it up with a single line: "They know where we can't reach." And for years, it worked. Armed burglars became undocumented residents. Child predators, barred from living near schools, settled quietly just blocks away. One man, convicted twice for indecency with minors, was found living only 3 streets from a playground. It wasn't coincidence. It was a system, one they had learned, mastered, and turned into armor. That realization hit harder than any statistic, because while parents worried about grocery lists and school pickups, monsters were shopping in the same aisles, unseen, unchallenged, and terrifyingly close. Operation Midway Blitz was born from that reality. It was survival. Because when agents looked at the data, the truth hit like a gut punch. More than 70% of early suspects already had violent convictions. But worse, many had crossed state lines after being released by local jails that never told ICE. Communities that once believed they were safe had become open hunting grounds. Parents went about their routines, not realizing that the monsters they feared were living right down the street. So agents stopped waiting. They labeled these offenders the worst of the worst. These weren't immigrants chasing opportunity. They were predators hiding behind immigration loopholes, using policy as camouflage. And for the first time, federal agents were ready to pull that mask off. By September 9th, 2025, everything was set. Operation Midway Blitz was ready to launch. From California's crowded alleys to New York's dim backstreets, from Texas suburbs to Illinois neighborhoods, the operation moved like clockwork. Dozens of doors burst open in the same minute. America's most violent offenders woke up to a sound they never expected. Federal agents at their door. But this wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Every arrest had a story. Every name had a file. Months of digital mapping, phone tracing, and financial tracking had led to that single morning. The first targets were child predators, the cases that make even hardened agents go quiet. Men with convictions for indecency with minors, some with multiple victims under 14. When agents moved in, many didn't fight. They just froze, stunned that their sanctuary had finally crumbled. They'd lived in safety for so long, they didn't believe it was over until the cuffs clicked. Then came the armed offenders, the repeat hitters, aggravated battery, home invasions, assaults with deadly weapons. One man had 7 prior convictions for armed burglary, slipping across state lines every time he was released. By day, his street looked peaceful, but by night, it was his hunting ground. When agents cornered him, the look on his face said everything. He thought he disappeared for good. And then there were the traffickers, the silent ones, the dealers who moved drugs through neighborhoods like a current under the surface, feeding poison to teenagers. No flash, no noise, just clean faces, burner phones, and encrypted wallets. They used crypto and coded transfers to vanish without a trace, but ICE tracked them anyway until the entire network collapsed. Finally came the property predators, the ones who didn't just steal things but stole peace itself. The ones who left neighborhoods haunted by sounds that weren't there, by lights flickering outside when no one was home. But that changed before sunrise. Unmarked vehicles lined the streets, doors opened without warning, silent entry, controlled chaos, and when it was over, for the first time in months, families could finally sleep. That was Midway Blitz in motion, not politics, not paperwork, just people and a nation taking their peace back. Still, one question remained. How did these criminals become so skilled at staying hidden? The answer lay inside what ICE called the sanctuary shield. Some jurisdictions limit how much local police can communicate with federal agents. The intention is compassion, to protect nonviolent immigrants, but for predators, it became a shield. They studied those laws, treated them like maps, and built what they called safe zones. Criminals actually swapped spreadsheets of which counties offered the best odds of release. Arrested one week, back on the street the next. It was a loophole-turned lifestyle. And while city councils debated policy, these men were moving like ghosts through the cracks. It's like criminals built their own safe houses, but the patience of law enforcement has limits. Months of surveillance turned into weeks of planning, then days of execution. ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Unit led the charge. They followed breadcrumbs, phone pings, cash transfers, and encrypted messages. Each suspect was mapped, prioritized, and assigned to strike teams across multiple states. When the takedown began, dawn raids lit up neighborhoods coast to coast. It wasn't random, it was surgical. Dozens of high-risk offenders neutralized before breakfast. Yet beneath the arrest was something deeper, a shadow economy built on exploitation. Violent offenders weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Fake IDs, illegal money transfers, crypto wallets, even coded apps. But every system has a weak link. When ICE cracked one of those encrypted channels, the whole network began to unravel. The same safe routes they'd used to evade capture became a roadmap straight back to them. And that's how the operation turned from defense to offense. What began as containment became pursuit, then came the aftershock. When ICE released the list of arrests, it hit suburban America like a punch. These weren't distant criminals, they were local neighbors, coworkers, and the man who waved at the bus stop. The shock was instant. Parents read those names and felt sick. Some couldn't believe they'd let their kids play outside next to those houses. The reaction wasn't just fear, it was betrayal. Communities realized how deep the illusion of safety had gone. Property values dropped, rumors spread, and for a while, nobody slept easy. But slowly, as the shock faded, something new took its place. Relief. Real, hard-earned relief. Because for once, people knew who had been haunting their neighborhoods. And while some doors stayed locked, others opened again. Families started walking at night. Kids played outside. Every arrest meant one less shadow on the street. But one question refused to die. How did this happen for so long? Operation Midway Blitz had revealed more than criminals. It exposed a flaw in the system itself. America's loophole crisis. Sanctuary policies had created a tension between local and federal law, a gap that predators slipped through with ease. The moral debate raged on. Could compassion coexist with security? For ICE, the answer was clear. Compassion shouldn't mean blindness. Each time agents tightened their grip, offenders simply crossed state lines, adapting faster than the laws meant to stop them. So yes, September 9th was a victory, but it wasn't the end. It was a line in the sand. And then came the statement that tied it all together. President Trump called the operation a reminder that America still fights for its own safety. Whatever your politics, the message was unmistakable. The days of hesitation were over. Because in the end, Operation Midway Blitz wasn't about arrests. It was about restoring faith, proving that safety can still be earned and justice can still be done. Each takedown wasn't just a name checked off a list, it was a child protected, a home secured. And yet, the final question still lingers. How many more are still out there, hiding in plain sight? That's why the story doesn't end with a celebration. It ends with awareness. Because justice doesn't rest, it doesn't retire. It moves silently and relentlessly to the next address. Like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single detail.